So on Monday, we were talking about the five hindrances. And then here we were going into the sensual desire, the first of the five hindrances. And as I said, these five hindrances, they are to be noted whenever they arise. And they are part of the whole part of the whole satipatthana practice. And if we are looking at hindrances, usually it falls under the fourth satipatthana, which is the Dhammanupassana. When we begin to see its condition, this sensual desire also, you can notice it as a chittanupassana. If you do not see the conditioning, and you just see it as it is, how it arises, how it changes, and how it disappears, then it becomes a chittanupassana. When you see it as a conditioning, in the sense that you notice the sensual desire, but also you notice what is affecting the sensual desire. How does the sensual desire arises? Because it could be sound, it could be something beautiful, something maybe something pleasant to you. Then it springs up the sensual desire. So now, if you see it in this way, then you see it as Dhammanupassana Satipatthana. Whichever way, whether you notice it as Kayanupassana, whether you notice it as Chittanupassana or Dhammanupassana, does not matter. Does not matter. Sometimes there are yogis who are so thinking that they only do Chittanupassana only. They only do Kayanupassana, or they do only do Vedana only, or they do only Dhammanupassana only. When a meditator, you have, as a Vipassana meditator, all these four, you have to be skillful. You have to be skillful. But the fourth one, the Dhammanupassana, it's more sophisticated because of its conditioning. So you have to master the first three: Kayanupassana, Chittanupassana, Vedananupassana. The first three, you have to master them. Then the fourth one will be much more clearer to you. Anyway, we're going to look into this sensual desire a little bit more, and we want to see how to overcome it, and especially in the Vipassana practice. If you got time lah. Sometimes I a bit chiong here. Then maybe until the next talk. In the meantime, okay. Okay, can you see the craving and clinging? Okay, all right, good. Now, when it comes to these five hindrances, we are talking about the first one, sensual craving. Talking about sensual craving. Although, in the second noble truth, when we talk about craving, we talk about the first one, the second one, and the third one. All of them are craving. All of them are craving, but their object is different in the sense. But this one, the first one, is we want to deal with this sensual craving. The becoming one is connected to certain view, impermanence, and non-becoming, also the same thing. From the craving, then if you are not careful, if you do not have a wise reflection or wise attention, yoniso manasikara, if you do not have this yoniso manasikara, then it will turn into clinging. That means you have wrong reflection or ayonisono manasikara. Then when it turns into clinging, that means the clinging is a stronger form of craving. It's a stronger form of craving. When it comes in as sensual pleasures, wrong views, rites and rituals, and the self-doctrine, the atta. So the best is that as a meditator, we try to deal it within the sensual craving. When it comes to sensual pleasures already, when it comes to clinging, it's much more difficult for us to overcome it while in the meditation time. But in our everyday life, this sensual craving is that you cannot see it. They are subtle. But whereas when it comes to sensual pleasure, most of the time also we cannot see it because we are enjoying it. For example, when we are eating, enjoying our food, all the sensual pleasures is very strong. But the thing is that because of its pleasantness, it's cover up the sensual pleasure, and the sensual pleasure is behind it. So in everyday life, these sensual pleasures, for most of the time also, and also for those people who are not meditating, and when their minds are not sharp, not clear, these sensual pleasures, you cannot see it. So you need some, to overcome some sensual pleasures, you need some, if you're not meditating, then you need some guidance by teachers or from Kalyanamitta or from the Dhamma, the text, regarding about these sensual pleasures. Then hopefully we can able to reduce these sensual pleasures, even in our everyday life. Now, in the sensual craving, now this is where we want to deal with it. When as a meditator. Because you see, when you are meditating, and normally when you are doing vipassana, and after some time you do vipassana, and then you notice that your objects becomes more clearer to you. Like rising and falling become clearer, pain also become clearer, and sometimes thoughts also become clearer to you compared to when you are beginning in the meditation, right? So too, the craving and also all the 5 hindrances are also become obvious to you. This is the nature of, because of the mindfulness. One of the nature of the mindfulness is to go face to face with the object. So when your mindfulness is strong, you go face to face with the object. Then that's why you see your meditation objects clearer as you developed. Now, so too when your hindrances also become clearer to you. And sometimes when these things become clearer to us, we kind of get shocked, especially like a vipassana meditator. There are some yogis get shocked, is in the sense that how come they are seeing so much of these hindrances around all the time? Here, after sensual desire, here, now after that ill will, there, now after sloth and torpor, then after that back to sensual desire again. No, they find it that they have to overcome a lot of these hindrances a lot. Well, in a sense that it's good in the sense that you can see it. It's good that in the sense that you can see it because you can able to notice it. If you cannot notice it, then it will overtake your mind. And at time, of course, you do not have any form of mindfulness. But because you can able to see it, that is somewhere we need to work on it a little bit more in order to overcome it. Yeah? So it finds that when these sensual pleasures and sensual craving, they can be quite overwhelming. And also, of course, the other hindrances, they can be quite overwhelming. And And if we are not trained in dealing with these hindrances, sometimes yogis get, lost the confidence in the meditation. So because they do not know how to do it, they do not know how to do it, how to deal with it, then they find that after some meditation time, they find it very difficult. They find it very difficult for them to overcome it. Then after that, they give up on the meditation. So therefore, a yogi needs to overcome them. Whether it's at craving level or at a clinging level, doesn't matter. As long as you can able to overcome them. As when it comes into a clinging one, then you need more effort. When it comes to the craving one, all you need to do is seeing it clearly, then you can overcome it. But the skill is that the craving, it's more subtle. The sensual pleasures in the clinging, they are more, even stronger. Therefore, they are more clearer. So the craving, on the craving aspect, it's easier to overcome. But on the clinging is difficult to overcome. But on the craving, they are difficult to see because they are subtle. But the clinging one, they are easier to see because they are gross. So this one, so we are looking into the sensual craving and the sensual pleasures. So all these things we just group them together while we are discussing on the hindrances. We don't go and differentiate whether is this just craving or sensual pleasure, because that time when it arises, you don't go and think about it. Hey, should I say craving or say just sensual pleasure? You don't go and think about all those things anymore. Yeah, you just note it. Then your job is to overcome it. You don't go and we can separate it into two. So this one we want to make things clear. We are not looking into becoming or non-becoming, wrong view, rites and rituals and all that thing. We just want in the area of the sensual craving. All right. Now, next one. Hindrances, nivarana. Now, since we are looking at sensual desires, kamachanda, we want to also, that means you need to recognize its characteristic functional manifestation. In the vipassana, in the abhidhamma, or even in the Visuddhimagga, they will talk about characteristic, function, manifestation, and proximate cause. I keep the proximate cause later, because in the vipassana, there's something quite special in understanding in these things. Understanding these first three things, like the characteristic, the function, and manifestation, is that when you are directly noting an object, when you're noting directly and noting an object, say even like you're noting a rising and falling or in breath, out breath, you will not, at that present moment, you will note one of, whether it's characteristic, whether it's function, or whether it's manifestation. You will note one of these three. But at the present, but subsequently, sometimes you're able to note function, sometimes you're able to note its manifestation. All right? When you are directly paying attention to an object. So too when you note sensual desire and all the rest of the hindrances, when it arises, when your mind goes, let go of the in-breath, out-breath, or let go of the rising and falling, then when your mind directs it to that sensual desire, The moment the mind touches that central desire, it will notice one of the characteristics, one of whether it's a characteristic, whether it's function, whether it's manifestation. And it doesn't matter as long as you can notice it. Now, sometimes when a yogi notices the object, when the desire is coming up, then the yogi notice that it's like holding on or grasping like on the object, like a python, coiling on to its prey. Or sometimes you have like the octopus. They got even got more tentacles, got 8 or 10 tentacles to grab the prey, and the prey will not able to go anywhere. It's like holding on. So too when it arises in the mind, when a sensual desire arises in the mind, say this time when it's a sound come in and it's a beautiful sound, and maybe it's a music and you love that music, and you love that music as it comes into the ear, and this time you are holding on to it. And sometimes whether it's coming directly from the ear, or sometimes you recall about the certain music and the music that you love, and for a number of times yogis may not able to stop the music, especially the one in the mind one. He cannot stop the music, and the music keep rolling and rolling and rolling and going and going. And then sometimes once in a while, if the yogi is not mindful, then while they are sitting, they also start singing. So because the when he starts singing, that means it goes into sensual pleasure, it's going to clinging already. That means it's quite strong already. So while it's in the mind, of course, it also can be clinging also. Not to say it cannot be clinging. But sometimes yogis are not mindful. They tend to come up in the mouth or in the action already. So the characteristic is that now when this type of thoughts arises, whether images arises or this type of sound arises, your mind is holding on or grasping onto it. So you're grasping into it, you kind of like stick to it. So the function is like, sometimes you describe it as like the mind is sticking onto that object, doesn't want to let go. When it doesn't want to let go, you notice it as a manifestation already, as non-letting go or non-giving up. You do not want to give up on it. You like to relish it. You like to your mind is enticed. Your mind is find gratification. You find pleasure in that object. So you hold on to it. So sometimes you will notice this object whenever the music arises, or whenever the good smell arises, whenever a beautiful thought arises, or thoughts of some man or some woman or your husband and your wife, and then sometimes lust arises, then the whole mind is gripping onto it, holding on to the object. So this is what it means on the sensual desire. And it's good that for us to notice that, to recognize its sensual desire in many ways. Sometimes this sensual desire, they do not come in always at show you the same face. Sometimes they have so many facets, so many, and they are cunning, and they are sneaky. And sometimes you meditate. While you're meditating, rising, falling, in breath, out breath, things going very nicely. One breeze coming in, and then you feel cools down, your body feel nice, and then immediately the mind forget about the rising and falling, and then it just follow the pleasantness of the body without you realizing it. And once it follows into it, of course, the mindfulness drop already. And you hold on to it until you realize that you're supposed to meditate. Then only you come out from that attachment. Then the whole attachment disappears. Then it goes back to a rising, falling. So you have to know it in different ways. In the knowing this sensual desire, although we just put here characteristic function manifestation, but in your own practice, you will see this sensual desire coming in a different way. Sometimes it's just connected with the mind, sometimes connected with the body, sometimes connected with the senses. So you got to see them. If no matter how we trying to describe it, how well we're going to describe it also, it wouldn't do justice until you see it for yourself. Directly see it for yourself. So the sensual desire. This we need to take note of it. All right. Then the next one is the cause for the sensual desire to arise. Wait, all right. The cause for sensual desire to arise. This is the cause for is unwise reflection, unwise thinking. Ayonisona manasikara. On the object that leads to grasping. The second one, unwise perception on a beautiful object. Okay. Now, during the practice, when we talk about sensual desire, it's more of a second one. It's more of a second one. Unwise perception on beautiful object. The first one is also connected with some degree of sensual pleasures. It also connected with the craving for becoming and the craving for non-becoming also. Because craving for non-becoming or non-becoming, not necessarily a beautiful object. And the object can be any, but then the mind just goes into it and hold on to it. Grabs upon it. It can be a view, which is not in a way beautiful or not. It can be a thought. It can be an image of the past, future, and so on. So the first one is more general. The first one is more general, covers all forms of craving. But whereas the second one, unwise perception on this one, it's connected with the one that we're going to discuss, especially on the 5 hindrances. Now, this is what the Buddha gave us. This is Anguttara Book 1, number 11. Because I do not see even one other thing on account on which unarisen sensual desire arises and arisen sensual desire increases and expands so much as the mark of attractive. Those who attend carelessly to the mark of attractive, unarisen sensual desire arises and arisen sensual desire increase and expand. So here the subha nimitta. Subha means nice or beautiful. Nimitta here means the mark or the sign. The mark or the sign of attractiveness of an object. There's a basis for lust. This one, the one in the that one is from the commentaries. The Sutta Nimitta here. This is commentaries. So you're trying to explain what the Buddha was talking. So we are looking at the number at this one. Beautiful object here. Why is it that it's a beautiful object to you and it may not be a beautiful object to others? This perception when you perceive something as beautiful, because in the past you already have, you already see it as beautiful already. So the moment that you notice it, then immediately the unwise reflection immediately comes up, and you feel pleasant about it. And you feel pleasant about it. There's a pleasant mental feeling or pleasant bodily feeling about it, connected to it, and you view that, or you perceive it as something beautiful. That perception is happening right inside us, and we don't even realize it. Immediately, the mind already grabbed it already. Yeah. But for another person, that particular object, a person may not grab it. Like for example, like a dress. You may see the dress very beautiful. Why you like the dress? Because maybe you like the color, let's say. So you like the color. Why you like the color? Because in the past, you already liked the color. You already like the color. And this is not in the past one time, but in the past, you have already repeated it again and again. And immediately when you see that blue dress, immediately the mind attached to it. The mind wants it. The mind crave for it. The mind desire it. So this is what we call the mark of attractiveness. Yeah. Why is it that the music you like this type of music and you don't like that type of music? You may like the sentimental nice music, but you don't like that heavy metal, that bang bang bang. You don't like that. Why is it so? So again, you love it, you like it because in the past you are dwelling into it, you are repeating on it. That's why you like it. And if you don't like that heavy metal music, because in the past, if you just the moment you hear it, it sounds unpleasant to you, immediately you don't like it. But maybe for another person, maybe your children, maybe your nephew, your niece, which is maybe younger than you, and they like all this type of strong heavy metal music. And then you tell them to listen to sentimental music, they say, this is all terrible music. So the taste is very different. The attachment is very different. But why is it so? Because of that perception to see that this is a beautiful object. You see it as a beautiful object. So too, like things like what you eat or what you smell, like durian. Some people like it, some people don't like it. You taste some other food, or what you see, or what you hear, or what you touch, or what you touch, and all these things. So this unwise perception, in a way that is a kind of an unwise thinking and so on. You see it as beautiful of the past. The moment you see it, the moment it already spring up. So now, understanding this too, it helps us now. Usually in the this one, they gave us all these four in the Abhidhamma or Visuddhimagga. If sometimes even the monks or when the Dhamma teachers, when they're giving, they also give these four. But I think that these four, although they are put in words, they can come in many forms, and sometimes it's kind of unique to you. So although you understand it from theory, but when it comes to the experiential part of it, although you may have all the theory, sometimes this this desire will still sneak into you until you completely forget about it. Now, You see, understanding this 1, 2, 3 and understanding this 4 and the cause, it helps us to like, especially the first three. It's like when you directly notice its characteristic, a direct characteristic of the sensual pleasures or sensual desire. Whereas when you're understanding its cause, you begin to see what is happening before the sensual pleasure and how the sensual pleasure is being conditioned to arise. Then, with that understanding of what is before and during, you will also naturally come to understand when the sensual desire is there, you also see that how it will condition further objects to arise. Further object to arise. The day we talk about, the day on Monday, we were looking into there is a sensual desire, there's no sensual desire. Then the yogis knows what, when the sensual desire arises, it knows that what caused it to arise. When the sensual desire is there, you also must know how to abandon it. What are the ways to abandon it? And when it's not there, how to prevent it from arising. So in that sense, when we look at sensual desire as a whole during in the practice. So in the beginning of understanding it is to understanding this characteristic, function, cause, so that we can able to further into understanding of the practice in the vipassana. All right? Okay. Now, when it comes into the practice of vipassana, there are ways we need to do it in the right way. If we don't do it in the right way, in this practice, then the hindrance will boomerang back to you, and you will make things even more stronger. It will even make things more stronger. Like that day I've mentioned is that if you don't like it, if you don't like your sloth and torpor, then you want to suppress that sloth and torpor with your dislike, then the sloth and torpor will grow, and also in the sense that your anger and your dislike also will grow. So instead of overcoming them, you increase all these things because you deal with it wrongly. So it is important that we need to know how to deal with it rightly. And when we deal with it rightly, then you need a wholesome mental states. When it comes to wholesome mental state, of course, it comes with a wholesome noting, proper ways of overcoming them. So we'll see again. Right? Now, to overcome a hindrance, right? Now, to overcome a hindrance, then usually during in the practice, we recommend you I recommend you to go through these 4 ways. But if you are skillful already, by the time you're skillful already, you already jump to number 4 already, because you're already skillful. But if you are learning, if you want to learn how to overcoming it, then I break it down for you to make it simpler for you to understand. And normally when I talk about dealing with these hindrances, usually I talk about these 4 ways. We're going to use these 4 ways to overcome all the hindrances, not just only sensual desire. All right. But when it comes to vipassana, samatha, and skillful ways, that one is each and every hindrance is different, really. Yeah? But they are going through all these 4 ways. Yeah? Because at the end, as I said, at the end, you need to abandon the hindrance. You need to abandon the hindrance. But when it's present, you need to see it as it is. So when it's there, you need to see it as it is. At the same time, you need to abandon it so that you can able to continue with your practice. So if the hindrance is not abandoned, then you will find that the meditation is going to go nowhere. Now, in order for us to overcome it, the first one I put there as mindfulness. Here it seems to be contradictory, because if you have mindfulness, then you don't have all these hindrances. Right? It seems contradictory, but in the practice, it is not contradictory. Contradictory if you think of the mindfulness as continuous. If the mindfulness is continuous all the time, then of course there's no hindrance. But your mindfulness is not continuous. You know that when you practice sometime, your mindfulness drop already, then hindrances arises here and there. Here is that when we say that when we talk about overcoming these hindrances again, this is for those yogis who already have some degree of practice, and you have some degree of practice when I say in the past, that means the very near past, that means you are in a retreat, In a retreat, that means yesterday, the day before, or 1 week already, you are in a retreat. Then you can able to go through these 4. If in the first few days, when your strength of your mindfulness is not continuous yet, and if you're a beginner meditator, normally we don't ask you to go direct head to head with the hindrance or a sensual desire or any hindrance. We do not recommend you to go head to head with it, face to face with it. You will fail. You will always fail, because these hindrances are very strong. They are like the big Goliath, and then you are little kids, and you are little small little tikus only, small little mouse only. Try to you cannot yet. You don't try to fight when you don't have the strong mindfulness. So usually if you are a beginner meditator, I don't recommend this way to do it. This way is for those who are in a retreat, and then when they're in a retreat, they have sufficient mindfulness, then you can do something like this. But in the beginning part, when you want to deal with hindrance, if it coming into you like thinking, normally what we recommend is to ignore it first. You know it's there. After that, you ignore it, let it go, come back to your original object, like your rising, falling, in breath, out breath. Don't deal with the hindrances for too long. Most of the time, you see that, okay, thinking comes in, okay, thinking. Okay, thinking, let it go, come back to your breath. If you are during your walking, let's say, during your walking, lifting, pushing, then your thoughts come in, you're aware of it, but you tell yourself, let go. Go back to your steps. That will be a better choice for you, actually, in the beginning of the practice. If you think that you are still a beginner, then that time you do like that, because you need to push the mindfulness a bit more stronger. If you dwell with if you dwell with the mind or you dwell with the desire, although you're aware of it, the greed is there, but I said you don't take on face to face with it, because they will the greed or the other hindrances, they can be very powerful, very, very powerful. Yeah? So normally I said that you don't go face to face with it too strongly. Just touch, aware of it, then go. But when you are more skillful, then you play a different game already. When you're more skillful during in the practice, then this method that you have to do already. You cannot run away from the hindrance, because these hindrances are prominent, very clear, and they can be, they can be if you're not careful with it, they can overwhelm you. But because of your past practice and you have gathered sufficient amount of continuous mindfulness in the past, now it is time for you to go face to face with it. Okay, you go face to face with it. Now, first of all, you need some degree of mindfulness. You see, here the mindfulness, it's when you have a certain degree of practice in the past, you develop a habit of mindfulness during in the practice. The mental habit of mindfulness is starting to gain momentum. Now, therefore, because of its past habit that you are already forming in the past, then when it comes into the hindrance, when it comes in the sensual desire that time, although you are overwhelmed by the sensual desire at that moment of time, but because of the habit of the past of mindfulness, then the mindfulness will start to slot in, kind of like slot in for a while, but your hindrances is strong. It just taken over that mindfulness. But every now and then, there is some degree of mindfulness is inside there. That means when there is mindfulness is there, that means you already begin to have some degree of alertness that you are affected by the sensual desire. If you have completely no mindfulness at all, so the first thing, you don't even recognize it. You don't recognize it, that means you're already inside the story, you are inside the music, you are already inside the all the desire that is overwhelming you. But because you know it, because you are aware of it, although the awareness, the mindfulness right now is not strong, you know that, oh, desire is here already, desire is here already. That means mindfulness already coming in. Yeah. So that means there are some degree of mindfulness there. So therefore, we want to build up on that mindfulness in order to overcome this one. So here, that mindfulness here, that awareness, it's still a weak form. If it's a strong form, the hindrances were already out. So this is a weak form. But the weak form, we build upon that. So the weak form is that when you're aware of the hindrance, you already take note of it, you're already aware of it, then well and good. So, mindfulness. Number 2, recognition. That means you recognize it as a sensual desire, and not as a sloth and torpor, as not as a ill will, and not as other mental defilements. You notice it correctly because it is the sensual desire. If sometimes some people they have a wrong understanding, then for example, they do not know what is restless mind, or they do not know what is sensual desire. They thought that this sensual desire is, that state of mind is there, but you don't think that it is a sensual desire. But if you don't recognize it correctly, then later on overcoming, you will have a problem because you will use other ways trying to overcome, which is totally could be opposite. So hopefully you recognize it carefully. And sometimes this recognize it carefully, that means also you put in the labeling there. If you are not sure, not sure in the sense that you are not skillful yet, means that it is, although sorry, although in the past you may drop your labeling already. Let's say in the past you may drop your labeling already, but sometimes when you come to a sensual desire, then you find that your mind is not sure whether how are you going to do with it. So the first thing is that you label it. You label it. So you label it as desire, desire, desire. That means right now you recognize it correctly. Therefore, the mindfulness is already there. So the first one and the second one, they are very closely connected. So just to make sure that you recognize it correctly. So therefore, when you recognize it correctly, that other words, you got to see its characteristic. The moment that you're aware that this is a sensual desire, because this time it is like sticking to an object. You hold on to it, you grab on the object. It doesn't want to let go, and it's relishing on it, enjoying it, and so on. And then you recognize that this one is desire coming in, desire coming in. So this is the first one and the second one. So that means the mindfulness has to be there, and you recognize it by labeling. So the labeling, again, this is optional. Optional if you are very skillful in meditation. The moment you see it, you already recognize it because you have done it so many times. If for those people, for those meditators who are not very sure, but you know that this is desire, then you label it. Then just to make it very clearly, to make it into perspective. All right. After the first one, the second one, they are very closely connected. Now the third one is also an extension of mindfulness, the acceptance. That time when we talk about mindfulness, that time I said one of the area of mindfulness is also acceptance, and especially when it comes to acceptance of the hindrances. Now, acceptance here, it's a very powerful tool. Although for some yogis, for example, they recognize that there's a sensual desire or maybe lust that comes up, then they cannot accept themselves. Or they cannot accept that. How come after so old already, 80 years old already, still got the lust arises? How can? Besi liao, want to die already, still the lust still come up. How could? Yes, exactly. You thought that you are old age already, you don't have all this lust, but the thing that you meditate, all the lust come up. So therefore, this is what we call non-acceptance. Although you recognize that you know that this is lust, but you cannot accept that. How come this thing arises? Or sometimes yogi goes through about that music. Then after that, the music keep on going on and on and on. You see, finally, so terrible, Bante. My mind, the music cannot stop. I tried this and tried that. I want to suppress it, cannot, Bante. How? This one, many times I heard it already. Out there in you have your music player. You have a pause button, play button, that one easy, but in the mind there's no pause button or stop button. Terrible. So sometimes the desire keep going. They keep going, but you see it, you know that it, but you cannot accept it. You cannot accept it that you have all these things, you can all this desire or later part in the sleepiness and so on. The mind cannot accept it. Cannot accept that. How come I already in the in the everyday life I don't do this and don't do that. I already cut off all my desire, but when I come into meditation now, my desire is like mad. Bante, how Bante? Like that, acceptance. So acceptance here is a very important part of the hindrance. Other object, more or less you can accept. More or less you can. Maybe pain also. Pain because of the ill will is behind it, But if when there's no ill will, there's no dislike, actually you can be able to note the pain quite easily. Yeah? But other objects are like neutral object, rising, falling, in breath, out breath, those things, you can accept this one a little bit more better. But when it comes to hindrance, because that hindrance is connected to the I. Sometimes the conceit of the I, if when you are meditating, you see yourself, you see a picture of yourself enjoying food, enjoying a vacation, enjoying this and that, you're enticed into it. Then that time, your I also is quite strong because sometimes you see yourself inside there. So therefore, sometimes it's difficult for us to undo because the acceptance is not there. So therefore, we got to learn to accept it as they are, not seeing it as they are yet, but to accept it as they are. On the other hand, acceptance doesn't mean that you don't care, don't bother. Acceptance here means that you're already aware of it, and then you put a sort of like a boundary on the hindrance. That you already put a boundary on the hindrance so that the hindrance don't go into all kinds of everything. That means you accept it, although it can be very gross, very terrible type of thinking and terrible type of thoughts or music or wonderful or whatever it is. So you put a boundary into it. So the acceptance is something like this. Your everyday acceptance and the mental and when it comes to the meditation one can be quite a different one. Your everyday acceptance, you talk about, okay, you can accept the rain, you can accept the heat, although that is good, not to say that is bad, but when it comes into meditation one, so that acceptance need to step up with strong mindfulness, in the sense that you have to accept it as it is. Because it will show you all kinds of things, terrible, wonderful, good, everything you have to discern. And here you are not supposed to go and suppress it through, Because once you do not have acceptance, usually yogis tend to try to push it away. You try to push it away, and when you try to push it away, because maybe you see a lot of lust in the mind, let's say. You see a lot of lust in the mind. You go, I don't like it. Terrible thoughts. Then, therefore, you are doing it the wrong way. That means you want to get rid of those thoughts, instead of paying attention to it. So you're trying to stop a hindrance with another hindrance. You want to stop a hindrance with another hindrance. That means here behind it is an ill will. You don't like that lust arising inside you. So you don't like it. You want to suppress it. So this is wrong. This is not the right way. That means if the lust arises, if the desire arises, if the nice smell arises, you got to see it. This is nice smell. This one is this, and so on. not suppressing it away. Yeah. So acceptance means to to accept it as it is, not to suppress it in any way. Okay. Another thing on the acceptance is, on the other extreme, is that you are not supposed to don't care, don't bother about it. For example, there are some people, they accept means, okay lah, let the last come lah, let the desire come, let it come lah. Come until you are surely got no strength one lah. Then you're not supposed to do like that also. Yeah, that means you don't care, don't bother. Especially like things when it comes into a restless mind. The yogi is thinking so much. Ayo bante polat dia. I just let it come only lah, let it come only lah. You want to bombard me, bombard lah. I don't care already lah bante. Lah. Sometimes yogi go into that situation, although they know that this is is a hindrance, but they have no acceptance anymore. They just let it let it be already. So that is also is not the right way, acceptance. Because that time you are not really putting a fencing around your hindrance. So you're just let it loose only, when you don't care, don't bother. So acceptance doesn't mean that you don't care, don't bother. It also doesn't mean that you have to suppress it until this one. So therefore you got to see it as it is. All right, you got to see it as it is. So this is only you come to acceptance, but you haven't reached overcoming yet. Now when it comes to overcoming, now you can able to accept it. Now you can do the overcoming part. Now the overcoming part, for this hindrance, we have for vipassana, we can go by the way of vipassana, by the way of samatha, by the way of other skillful ways. Other skillful ways, you can do it in your everyday life also, and also you can do it in the retreat also. But samatha and vipassana, more or less you need to do it in the retreat. Not really also in the much of everyday practice, once a day and so on. It's more of this one. Now, already 10 o'clock, but I'm going to continue this one onto it next week. But in the meantime, before we go, there's a number of things already. I already come up with it. Yeah. Those who association with those who are here, I'm not going to talk about it. This one, next week, we're going to talk about it much more. We're going to directly go into it. I haven't finished typing also that part. Anyway, what I want to share right now is through a vipassana method. When we go through a vipassana method, it's direct observation and noting. Okay? Don't worry about samatha and other skillful ways. With that one, we're going to explain on it much more. But what is important in the vipassana practice is always the direct noting and the direct observation. This time, when you are noting a sensual desire, that means you're able to accept it, you label it, and so when you're noting it, your mind the noting has to be firm. The noting has to be clear. Then that means the noting also has to sing how the sensual desire is arising, and then how sustaining, how it disappearing, how it comes up again, how it do this and do that, So you try to notice it as best as you can. You try to notice desire, 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 desire. That means there must be a certain firm effort noting it, and at the same time you see its characteristic. You see its characteristics, you see that how it becomes stronger, become weaker, finally it kind of abandon, it disappear, and maybe it will use after that a short while later it will come back again, and you see it, you take note of it again. Sometimes you have to go through a few rounds like this, until it's like completely abandoned for that period of time. Completely abandoned for a period of time. That means you can go back to your rising, falling, in breath, out breath, and so on. But while you are dealing with it, what happened is this. When you're directly noting it is characteristic, then you are putting more mindfulness into it, you're putting more concentration into it, you're putting more wisdom factor into it because you're seeing its changes. And therefore, because of that wholesome mind is coming up at the background, then slowly and slowly it push the sensual desire further and further and further until it disappear. Because the wholesome mind and the unwholesome mind, they cannot come together. So it's which one is stronger? Because you can able to note it well, you can notice it because of your past experiences, past meditation. And if your meditation of past few days, you have been developing that mindfulness. So this time, whenever you touch upon that sensual desire, those past meditation that you have is very fast, it comes up already. Very fast it comes up. You notice it, then this sensual desire weaken and then it disappear. Because of the noticing in this way. Now, if you notice it in that way, then of course that is fall under Chittanupassana. So another way of looking into way of overcoming it is again in the Dhammanupassana, which we are, now. So therefore, when that sensual desire arises and you notice that this is a sensual desire, you notice it already. So this time you notice that the pleasant feelings that comes together with that sensual pleasure. Or the pleasant coming in is in the sound. Then after that, you notice the sound also. Sound, pleasant, desire. Then with the desire it comes more thinking, or planning. Then in this way, when you notice the sensual desire as the main subject, then you notice the cause, what happened before that sensual desire. Then that means that you notice the sound, you notice the pleasant feelings, you notice the sensual pleasure arises. Then perhaps with the noticing of the sensual pleasure arises, then you also notice that, in the past I was doing this one which is connected with the song. Then you see an images of you remember what's in the past that's happened to you that's connected with the song, connected with that sensual desire. So this time you notice the thinking, planning, or thinking, past experience. So you take notice of those things. So in a way that because of you see a stream of object is connected with that sensual desire, then it falls under Dhammanupassana. Because of your mindfulness arises through your noting of your sound, through the noting of your pleasant feelings, through the noting of the sensual desire, through the noting of the thinking. Because of that noting, then the mindfulness, the concentration, and the wisdom factor, they all arises. They become strong, and because of become strong, it eliminates the sensual desire. This is how we take note in the Vipassana practice. We go directly head on to see its characteristic, to see its true characteristic of the sensual desire. So you see so sometimes you may see the sensual desire as just sensual desire without all these sensual pleasures, all these feelings and so on, all this sound, you just only see the sensual desire. Sometimes you may see it as one after another. So if you're able to notice that, also is well, both also is in the correct way. Finally, it's about abandon that sensual pleasure. So when you're overcoming it, this is how we do it in the way of vipassana. Okay, so the way of samatha and other skillful ways, we will talk about it on next week. Yeah, it's also quite a lot. I mean, it's interesting, and also you can incorporate them a little bit into your vipassana, and it makes the whole vipassana even more well oiled, even more smooth. So that this one we'll talk about it on next Monday. All right. So on Friday we will have a Q&A session. Just like as usual, the phone number is already on the on the on the chat already. So all right, that's it. So we share merits.